Hey, I'm golf broadcaster Matt Adams. The updated and expanded second edition of my book, The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments, is now available. Readers can expect to march with Arnie's Army at the 1960 U.S. Open, relive Jack Nicklaus's remarkable 1986 Masters win, and be amazed by the Tiger Slam. The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments. Pick it up where fine books are sold, including BarnesandNoble.com and Amazon.com.
This day in sports history. It's March 21st, and on this day in 1970, it was the origin of the agony of defeat. If you grew up in the 70s or 80s and were a sports fan like me, then you undoubtedly heard these words.
The thrill of victory and the agony of defeat.
That's the voice of Jim McKay and part of the intro to a Saturday television staple, ABC's Wide World of Sports. Well, while the images shown for the thrill of victory changed periodically, from 1970 onward, the image shown for the agony of defeat was that of a ski jumper falling on the ramp and hurtling off the end of it and crashing to the ground, skis flying off in different directions. The event that became synonymous with the agony of defeat happened on this day in 1970. It was the International Ski Flying Championships in Oberstdorf, Germany, and the weather on this day was absolutely awful. It was windy, visibility was low, snow had begun to fall, and the ski jump ramp was icy. The ski jumper, who would soon slide into infamy, was a 22-year-old Slovenian named Vinko Bogataj. In an interview years later, he recounted how bad the weather was and how he found it hard to see much. He waited for about 20 minutes before he was granted permission to attempt his third jump of the day. Not too long after he started down, he realized the ice had made the ramp too fast, and he tried to lower his center of gravity and slow his descent. But then snow grabbed one of his skis, causing him to lose his balance, and he sat back on his skis. Unable to stop, he launched off the ramp, flailed in the air, and tumbled through a catch fence. He suffered a concussion and a broken ankle in the fall. But he wasn't gone from the sport long. He was back training about 4 months later. ABC had sent camera crews to this event, and it wasn't long after Bogataj's accident that the network began using that video clip in its opening montage for Wide World of Sports. Most people did not know his name, but everybody who ever watched that show at least knew who you were referencing. But Bogataj did not have a clue that he was famous in America. It was not until 1981, when ABC celebrated the 20th anniversary of Wide World of Sports and brought Vinko Bogataj to the U.S., that he began to understand. During the celebratory gala dinner, Bogataj received the loudest ovation, and he was stunned when boxer Muhammad Ali walked over to him and asked for his autograph. Bogataj thought it must be a joke. Why would the internationally known Ali want the autograph of a Slovenian factory worker who was relatively unknown in his own country? And that's when he realized he had become iconic, and it's all because of what happened on this day 54 years ago. Vinko is now 76 years old and living in his hometown of Lecce, Slovenia. Also on this day, in 1987, the Providence Friars, coached by Rick Pitino, upset John Thompson and the Georgetown Hoyas to advance to the Final Four of the NCAA tournament. Played in Louisville, Kentucky, this matchup was the fourth meeting that season between the Big East rivals. They split their regular season games, and the Hoyas beat them in the Big East tournament 2 weeks before. But in this game, the Friars jumped out on top early and led by 17 at the half. Georgetown could not put together any sort of a meaningful rally, and Providence won 88-73, with future college coach and current coach of the Chicago Bulls, Billy Donovan, leading the way with 20 points. 16 of those coming from the free throw line. Teammate Darrell Wright had 20 off the bench. Providence had been just the fourth best team in the Big East that year, but found themselves in the national semifinals against another Big East team, Syracuse. Unfortunately for the Friars, Their magical run ended in a loss to the Orange in the Louisiana Superdome a week later. And in 1980, this is the day that President Jimmy Carter announced that the United States was officially boycotting the Summer Olympics and would not be sending any of its athletes to Moscow. The boycott was in protest of the Soviet Union's invasion of Afghanistan in 1979. Only 3 other countries joined the U.S. in boycotting the Games: Canada, West Germany, and Japan. Carter tried to convince Great Britain, France, Greece, and Australia to join, but failed to do so. There was also a push for the boycotting nations to send athletes under a neutral banner, but Carter threatened a revocation of passports of any of the U.S. athletes who attempted to do that. Reaction to the decision was mixed. Athletes who had been training for years were obviously upset, but there was support for Carter's action taken against the oppressive and anti-democratic Russian government. The Soviets responded 4 years later by boycotting the 1984 Olympics in Los Angeles. And today's fun fact: in Maryland, sleeveless shirts are banned in public parks. So I guess the phrase is, sun's out, guns not out. That's all for today. More tomorrow on This Day in Sports History. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude, and I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history, but as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear, starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, or who knows, maybe even writing an article for us over on the website. Seriously, all you gotta do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you gotta do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.